well. I couple of concepts that I took out of it. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, which was one of her secrets of adulthood, which I noticed changed at the end, because the secrets of adulthood that she gave at the end of the book were different than the secrets that she gave at the beginning. But one of the concepts that came out of her podcast was always make the bigger choice. And it actually, I believe, was in the book as well, but it was discussed again more in the podcast, of always making the bigger choice, the one that leads you to more life. And that's something that I've been trying to do recently, even though that bigger choice can often be scarier. But I very much enjoyed the book.
Perfect. Thank you, Linda. Does anybody else want to give their summary on the book or their take on the book? Any hands? Make me do it like table topics. Oh, Mary Helen, go ahead.
Well, I think that wouldn't be bad to do table topics, because I think that sometimes it's hard for us to be general. Yeah. I found it a little bit difficult to get into the book in the beginning, and I'm thinking, oh, this is some other, high achiever that wants to break this down. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be tough to get through, even though I love the title and I was so excited to read it. But when I was forced to sit there and go through the whole book, I loved the book because it really spoke to me in so many ways. Like Linda, I had heard a lot of this stuff in bits and pieces all over the years, the self-improvement junkie that I am. But what I loved about it, and I'm going to go back and go over the book again, because I think that I skimmed it a little too fast in some spots. And I realized that, as an older person, sometimes we feel that, hey, we've been striving all our lives to be better, to do better, to seek to be better. But I love the idea that, yeah, that's who I'm all about. I want to get excited about something. I want to always have something to look forward to, but at the same time, I want to appreciate what I already have at the same time and not always be dissatisfied. So, I mean, she talked a lot about a lot of different things. Yeah. The one thing that really popped out at me was the fact that there was a study done that 50% of people that are happy, it's genetics.
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's got to be Jetta. She's genetically happy. And I thought about it myself, and I thought, you know what? I think I am too. I think I'm that way. I think I'm part of that 50% that's genetically happy. But, I want the rest. I want the other 50% of it to be going in full blast. So I really related to the book. Thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. And so one of the things I noticed that Mary Helen and Linda said was that a lot of the book was things that you kind of already heard about, right? Like she said, self-improvement sort of thing. She kind of just put them into perspective for us. So I guess my next question would be for someone, what was, I guess, one of the examples or something that happened to her that you took, like self-improvement? I know for me, she really went into one of the chapters, I think it was August, where she discussed money can't buy happiness, but money does help in terms of happiness, which is a big topic, right? Because most people, that's like one up for debate. So does anyone here maybe have something that they can relate to in terms of self-improvement, or something that they took from the book that they didn't realize later on? Stephen?
Well, first, my reaction to the book initially was similar to Mary Helen's, in that I picked up the book, I read 75 pages, I didn't pick it up for the next 2.5 weeks, and then sat down and knocked off the next 210 pages. Okay. One of the things that struck me right from the beginning is, first of all, this author has a background that really is incredible for a writer. I mean, she went to Yale, and then most importantly, she went to Yale Law School, but then she actually clerked for Sandra Day O'Connor. And you really can't do more than that, achieve more than that in the legal field at that stage of your life. And then she went from that, she put it all aside, and then she said, well, I want to be a writer. And it's not that she writes a book like this, The Happiness Project, which is something where she kind of sits down and can go through her whole life and how she's feeling and then how I correct it. No, she writes about Winston Churchill and John F. Kennedy, the biographies of these people. So the first thing that strikes me about Gretchen Rubin is that she's absolutely fearless to be able to do this kind of stuff. And to me, she approached the reason I think she uses the word project, which is a little bit weird for this kind of a book, but she calls it a project because she wants people to approach it like some kind of a self-initiative that has to be monitored and examined on an ongoing basis. Now, that's just my initial thoughts. The thing that jumped out at me, there were many things, but one of the things that jumped out at me in terms of self-improvement is her attitude about being positive rather than being critical. And what she says there is that it is so easy actually to be critical of other people, but to be positive, it actually takes humility. I would say self-humility to do that. And I think that I even started implementing that sort of immediately. Okay. The other thing I found very interesting is that the first step for her, like in Atomic Habits, really is that you have, if you're going to do any psychoanalysis, you have to understand yourself first. Be Gretchen. She kept going back to like a leitmotif. Be Gretchen, be Gretchen. And James Clear said, if you're going to do things in life, you got to play to your strengths. And that means that you've got to jump into things that you know you will do well at, or you won't be up to the mark when in terms of other people who are. That, and the last thing, and something that's very important to me, because I keep giving that speech, everything in life is relative, is she kept coming back to the piece. It's all relative. It's all relative. And unless you've had some sort of a, life-threatening or life-changing health experience, it really doesn't register. But she kept going back to that look, when you think things are bad, just think about other people.
Thank you, Stephen. That is correct. And I think just to add a little bit to what you were saying, the word you were looking for is when she made that chart of resolutions, I think it was accountability more, or say that she was saying, you have to be accountable to be able to make changes. You have to do these little things and check yourself off every day. Right. So yes, I agree with you. Does anybody else have something they'd like to add? Elena?
Hi. I'm actually very happy that Mary Helen said what she said. She kind of opened the door for me, because when I started reading the book, I was just thinking, first of all, when the book was announced, the name, I thought, oh my God, this is perfect topic. But when I started reading the book, I was thinking, oh my God, the topic is so much better than the writing. And I have to say that I carried that thought through the entire book. And but what I did take out positive out of the book is that the whole concept that she came up with, invest in time in figuring out what happiness is and kind of taking it in a project management style. Create a plan, break it down into steps, and then start going through each and every step, exploring it, crossing it off the list, moving to the next step, doing lessons learned. So I do admire that approach, absolutely. Extremely useful and inspirational, definitely. And the other thing that appealed to me in the book is one of your statements, imitate your spiritual master. I don't have a spiritual master, but I do catch myself, because I'm a project manager, my whole day goes just talking to people on various topics, persuading them to do things that sometimes they don't want to be doing, right? And following up and insisting or doing various things. Let's put it in those words. And I catch myself sometimes when I need to approach a difficult conversation, I have a specific person in my mind whose communication style I admire so much. And I always ask myself, okay, what would he do? How would he say it? How would he write it? And I step into that mind frame and imagine how he would express, and then I communicate. And I know that when I take that time and get myself into that mind frame, my communication in those critical and crucial conversations happens so much better and creates much more long-term relationships. Thank you.
You're welcome, which is great, Elena, because that's one of the things she talks about for happiness, relationships, and strengthening them. Roosevelt, I did see your hand go up earlier. Can we have your take on? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
First, I like the book. I love the book. I remember I was having a conversation with a friend, and the very first thing he told me, Geraldine, is that, oh, I started listening to the book and then I just put it away. I don't like it. But one thing I know is that there is a difference between listening and reading. Because when you read, you can stop, pause, ponder, and you pull yourself from the author's own story and you bring your own story. And that's what I did. When she mentioned energy, when she mentioned having fun, what do I do to have fun? When was the last time I stopped and decide to have fun? That means I am aware that I'm doing this just for fun instead of just doing it. I think this book gives us an opportunity to reflect on things that we are searching. Everybody is looking to be happy. But sometimes we even don't know and don't reflect about a couple of things that may make her or make us happy. So what I appreciate with this book is that it goes hand in hand with the book of Wanda Rhimes, A Year of Yes. But instead of one person doing one thing, now it is part of a project, and the project is me. I decide to follow every month, the very same way with the autobiography of Ben Franklin. He has 13 subjects, 13 topics that he decided to master. I think that's exactly what she did in that book. You can model. That means you can take her as an example and you decide, how do I wake up during the day? What do I do to bring energy to myself? What is the message? What is the story I'm telling myself? And you can go back to your childhood. When I was 10, what did I like to do? And when you ask yourself those questions, you read her story. Now you can retrieve her own story and you put your own story. Then now you start by making this book alive. And this is what I get from that book.
Perfect, thank you. And just to touch up on that, that is absolutely correct, because like Mary Helen mentioned, I realized that maybe people perceive me that way, that I'm automatically always happy. I'm always just super cheery and I come to everything with a smile. But a lot of times, even when I'm feeling down, that is just my default state of being. So yes, Mary Helen is correct. That is just in my genetics. However, like Roosevelt said, I was able to apply like so many of the different things that she talked about into my everyday life. One thing I actually liked about this book is it had so much quotes, I guess you could say, on top of research and other books that we probably could have made notes out to take on later. One of my favorite quotes that she wrote is, let me just put it up here, is which she says it in April for the first time. In the April chapter, we hear it. And then later on, at the end, she kind of summarizes it. It's called, "The days are long, but the years are short." Yeah. And that to me, I was like, wow. I mean, that was short and simple, that quote, but it is very true. You know, every day when I'm doing my everyday things, I feel like, oh my God, this day is dragging out. But then somehow I still don't have enough time to do everything. So I guess my next question for everyone here is, which quote did you take from? I know Linda did mention one that she spoke about. Dave, do you have one maybe that you liked, or a specific topic in general?
I do.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Maura.
My favorite quote is the one that you just mentioned. I read this book a couple of years ago. As a matter of fact, I read all of her books. I have another one, Better Than Before, written by her. And one of the quotes is the one that you said, the days are long, the years are short. And that stayed with me because I'm looking at pictures of my son when he was a baby. And now my son is an old man. And I'm thinking, I was so busy when my son, and the days were, Apologize.
Go ahead, Dave. Don't worry, Ara, we'll continue with you.
That's all right. I don't have a particular quote for her, but the thing that I was struck about, besides what other people have said about, we've heard some of these things before in other self-help books, but I thought one of the things that was really interesting was what she called the arrival fallacy, which we've also read about, that we're always striving. But what she did differently than Atomic Habits or other books was that the process of arriving was actually very enjoyable. And if we were remembering back in days past when we had traditions, family traditions, or whatever that activity was, you couldn't wait till that event. And so you'd start preparing for it no matter what. In my case, whether NCAA Final Four, I was getting ready for the basketball game. I get my shirt and my hat, things like that. I tell people about, oh, the game's going to be, who are you cheering for? And that process of sharing your passion was what made things even better. The games were pretty good too, but it was just the excitement of getting ready for the games or whatever activity you're doing. And if you don't have anything to look forward to, a project, so to speak, then of course, then you can't have that excitement, build those relationships and so forth. So that's just another reason to start doing things again.
Thank you, Dave. And Mina, I see that you're there and everything. Kind of want to hear from you. Do you have any quotes or something that you took from the book personally that kind of hit you? Like when I saw
like the quote that you gave about the days are long, but the years are short. And I think in relationship to parenthood, I mean, I don't have kids, but I know a lot of people with kids who, they just reach their maximum, and or even I guess with coworkers, but for parents, I guess, because you love your kids, you don't love your boss or whatever, and the days are really long, but the years are short. It doesn't really apply in that sense. But for the kids, right? Because the years will pass and then you'll look back and you'll miss those times with your kids when they were smaller and stuff. And you'll wish that you could go back to those times when they were just, under your feet and behind your legs all the time and stuff. So I really like that one for my friends who are parents. But in general, I liked her positive approach to it. And I think that a lot of times when we're overwhelmed, if we take the advice of, making a list of all the things and then knocking off the ones that you could do with 5 minutes of effort, because there's so many times where it's like, oh, I have to do a million things. And there's so many things with just 5 minutes of effort, you can knock it off. And then you'll feel so good that you accomplished something. I had a day like that last week where I felt like I accomplished so much. And I was like, what else can I do? What else is on my list? And I wish that I had a list in front of me. And something that a friend of mine told me recently is that we make these to-do lists, but we should also keep a ta-da list. Ta-da, we're finished, and give ourselves that pat on the back, because Gretchen said that she's very motivated by credit, like that time with her mom, coming down and said, oh, what little, angel did this overnight, so I think giving ourselves that pat on the back, acknowledging that we've accomplished something, I think that would feed the machine of more productivity. So I took that away.
Thank you, Mina. Ara, did you want to continue? Sorry, I know you unmuted yourself.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Mary Helen.
I don't know about any of you, but I'm a parent, or I was a parent. My kids are all grown, and I could not get over how did this woman put so much into one day. I mean, she had a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old, and she was a full-time writer, and she wants to exercise, and she wants to be a, what? I'm thinking, this is really a superwoman, but, maybe it takes a superwoman to write these books, and that's why I'm not writing a book, right?
But I actually think the key to her success was in the book, the little things, because even for me, for example, like she said, I was like, man, she has kids, but I know someone who does just as much as more as me, and they have kids as opposed to my 2 cats that, to me are my kids, but don't actually bother me all day. So do we have anyone else that wants to touch on a quote that they liked? Or maybe a general statement of the book?
I have a quote.
Ilona?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure.
I'm going to the video because I have it on my phone. I don't want to do
Ilona,
so the quote is that there are two quotes. One, can you hear?
Yeah, I think, yeah, turn off her video would help to give her more bandwidth.
Ilona, if you turned off your video, maybe that will help.
I just saw the video.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so the first quote is, she's quoting Samuel Butler, and he wrote, "Happiness and misery consist in a progression towards better or worse. It doesn't matter how high up or low down you are. It depends not on this, but on the direction in which you are tending." And so basically happiness, it's up to us really. And the second one was about money. This seems a key to understand relationship between money and happiness. If money is to enhance your happiness, it must be used to support aspects of life that themselves bring happiness to you. Money, it's a good servant, but a bad master. So if it's a bad master, we'll be better at mastering our money. I think a lot of people due to pandemic doing a relationship with the money is so much different than it was before. At least my is different. I'm watching my money, but sometimes you get rewarded. Like yesterday, I got a free cinnamon roll at McDonald's for the Black Friday. I was so excited about it. So to me, spending a little bit on the food, that works, but otherwise, I'm just watching my money because we don't know what's going to happen next month or in January. So the relationship with the money is different right now, and again, that can be related somehow to the level of happiness, and it is up to us to be a better master, like you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilona. Thank you. All right, perfect. So one of the things that, like, as everyone said, is she was very organized. She's a lawyer. I mean, like Stephen mentioned, she worked for, I can't remember the person's name, but I know it was someone very important. So she was very organized. And so for me, I thought to myself, what was something that was missing? Do you guys think anything was missing from her happiness project? Maybe something that she left out? I think early on, she mentioned how in all of her research and all the books that she read in terms of happiness, they left out clutter. But clutter became like a big thing. It was a big topic throughout the entire book. She was constantly decluttering, whether it was physically or mentally. She was decluttering a lot of things. Did someone feel like for them, maybe she left something out? Just like the authors of happiness had left something out? Leslie, I haven't heard from you, and I'm kind of jealous you have that glass of wine.
So I was just gonna mention one thing that I quote from the book.
Yes.
And she said, laughter is more than just a pleasurable activity. And I think that's really, for me, that's quite fundamental. It's not just, you have to make a conscious effort to get into that zone and to enhance your entire demeanor. Like, especially in this quarantine situation that we're in now, I think it's important to look at your day and how things are going and try to add fun activities and try to make a conscious effort to relax and get into that zone and not just get caught up in the to-dos and the many Zoom calls. This is probably like my 4th Zoom call today.
Wow.
So it's I think even like one of the things I did like pretty early in the quarantine is that we started doing board games at home. And I found this board game where you can play against other friends online. And just doing that one thing, I try to do it like every day. And sometimes my kids get involved or whoever, but it is a conscious effort to do something that, just relaxes you and get you into that mindset where you're not just caught up doing on that treadmill. So that was my contribution.
Thank you, Leslie. Perfect. And I do see we have someone that came in, Lorraine Campbell. Welcome. Hi. Do you want to give us your take on the book? Were you able to read it?
Oh yeah, I did read it. I can't believe she did all of that in a year. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lorraine Campbell. I'm with Club Awesome. It's so good to see so many friends online. I am a reader. This is my second book club, Overachiever. And I totally enjoyed this book. I very much enjoyed this book. It came in at the right time of the year to make us think of what we can do to make our lives happier for the upcoming year. I wondered if she had a full-time job, though. The amount of stuff that she got done. I thought this was the only thing she had working for herself, but it was a very interesting read. I'm glad whoever chose it, great choice. I enjoyed it.
And perfect. And Lorraine, do you have maybe a quote or something from the book that stood out to you that you want to share with us? Or another question I asked earlier was maybe something that you feel she left out, for example. She talked about how the authors at the beginning, you know, they left out decluttering and it became a big part of her happiness project.
I don't know. It's a good question. A Toastmaster without something to say. How about that one?
No.
I think just sometimes just being still and sitting in it, just being still. She was just busy. That was what I took from it, even though it was productive busy. And I'm sure she had some still moments. It just didn't seem like that in the book. It seemed like, yes, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try that, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Yeah. Oh, do we want a dog? And you know, so it was a little, but I'm sure she had it. It just didn't convey in the book itself. But I did enjoy it.
Thank you, Lorraine. Perfect. You know, when I was reading the book, one of the things she starts off talking about was, I think, flossing, how, and then it's something that builds up. I forget what she calls it. Then it turns into something else, a bigger project. And it's something that's going to be constantly ongoing. And so at the end of the book, she realizes this is a constant project. This isn't just simply because she's ending in December doesn't mean that her project is now over. This is something that's ongoing. So for me, one of the things that I started doing was it's not even the biggest thing, but I wear glasses. And so I have contacts and I don't use them until I know they're about to expire because I paid for them and the money. So I actually started putting my contacts in every day when I woke up. And so as I started reading this book, I said, you know what? One of the little things I'm going to do is put my contacts in every day, no matter how I feel, no matter if I'm going to stay home all day and work, you know, from home and my pajamas all day. Did that happen to anybody else or was it just me? Did someone else pick up kind of like a little habit or anything else? Price, I haven't heard from you yet. Trying to stand in the background and hide, I know.
I was trying to not say anything. I didn't want to ruin it for everybody else, but I actually was excited from the title to just jump in there and read the book. Even though when I looked at it, it was like a 10-hour listening session. I was like, okay, I'm all in. I'm just going to do it. So I started walking, listening to the book, and I did not finish it because I lost interest. At the beginning of the book, I actually lost interest, and I was like, wow, okay, I just can't do it anymore. I forced myself, but I got to a point like, I'm like, okay, I just have to stop. I can do it.
And just curious, Price, what about the book was it that made you lose interest? I mean, Mary Helen and Stephen mentioned that they picked up the book and just the way that it sounded wasn't, I don't know, they just didn't like the flow of it. So for you, what was it? With the same thing? I mean, did you stop at?
It was the flow, but I think I wasn't getting anything new out of it at the beginning. I don't think if she left that for the end, but at the beginning, it was pretty repetitive to me. It wasn't anything that I didn't, because I read a lot of books.
Yes.
Or I listen to a lot of books. So I was like, well, she's not giving me anything here. Come on, let's get on. I think the introduction probably of the book was probably too long. And she repeated a lot of things that I already heard other places and stuff. And I lost interest.
So it's kind of what Linda and everyone said. It was like a lot of self-improvement things that we've seen. So we
Right.
think about this over and over again.
Right.
Took
Right.
a different approach to it. Okay.
So that was where she lost me. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go through this and just rehash things I already heard, that I just can't do it.
Perfect. Yes, Linda, go ahead.
I was fortunate in that I do Meals on Wheels delivery for Martin County. And so it was perfect for me to be able to listen to the book. So it's like, okay, I could kind of, when it got to boring parts, I could let it go. But one of the things you mentioned a few moments ago that really got me on this past Tuesday, actually, because toward the end of the book, where she alluded to the difference between goals and resolutions, where you hit your goal and it's done, which you were just talking about with the book. Okay, she's done her 12 months, the book is done, which would be the goal. But yet the resolution and the resolving to be a different person could be an ongoing thing. And I did pick that up out of the book as well.
It's a good point, like Linda, sorry. That's great. You're right. You're absolutely right. There was so much in the book that, it's almost hard to put everything into perspective. Do we have anyone else that wants to talk about maybe a habit or something that they feel was left out of the book? Mary Helen, go ahead.
Well, something that Linda just said about, she would repeat over and over again about just being Gretchen. That was one of her resolutions. And yet at the same time, it's obvious she wanted to be a better version of herself at the same time. So, and I think that I think in general, Toastmasters can relate to that, because why the heck else are we in Toastmasters other than to be better versions of who we are and being in an atmosphere which promotes that, actually. So, yeah, and I like that. I mean, the fact that she had a year's overlay behind her with every interaction that she had with other people. It was always like, how can I make this better? How can I feel better when I'm interacting with this person? Or how can I make my relationship with my husband and my kids even better? And I think one of the changes, if it is to be, to see the change, I have to change. And for other people to change, I have to change. Or for me to change, that, I forget what the quote was, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
And I really thought to myself after I finished, I said, you know what, I got to go over this book again. I don't have time to do it, but I really need to go over this book with a fine-tooth comb, because I like the way she puts the format, because frankly, hey, I don't care how happy I am right now. I want to be even happier than that. And the one thing I always struggle with in my life is I always feel like David was saying before, I got to have something to look forward to. I got to have this new project. I got to have this new enthusiasm. I got to be excited about something. And yet at the same time, I want to continue to plug at the things that I've been plugging at for so many years, like learning Spanish. I mean, I've listened to Stephen give his speech several times, but I don't seem to be getting any better, but I know that I am. It may take me another decade or two, but I'll get there at some point. So I get a lot of enjoyment on just plugging at it, I guess, is what you're saying. But that big enthusiasm, I'm so excited about something. Boy, I could use a little bit of that.
I agree, Marilyn. It's true. And actually, she talks about that growth. So for me, I thought to myself at the end of the book, I was like, well, she summarized her version of everything that happened as we're following along. But what did I get from it? And she said it midway or early on in the book, which was, we get happiness from the growth that we achieve. Mary Helen just talked about learning Spanish, and it's like, she's getting happiness from getting better and better every day. Me as a Toastmaster, I'm happy growing, saying, I've done this speech and I used to talk so quickly that nobody could understand me. And now I'm over here moderating a book club, and I'm able to take a pause and do better. So one of the things that I loved about the book was that it was growth. And for me, the summary of the book was overall that growth with these other little, I guess, subjects underneath is what drives the happiness. So one of the questions for me that I thought, did anybody here make a chart, or maybe start like a 12 commandments or secrets of adulthood of themselves? Do they have one they want to share? Do I see a hand? Stephen, I'm going to come back to you.
I didn't put together a chart or anything like that, but that point about growth, though, was something that caught my attention. I remember, I don't want to drag this out, but I remember it must have been 30 or 35 years ago, I was interviewing with a headhunter whom I knew also placed CEOs into jobs. And I said to them, what is the sort of the most revealing or distinguishing characteristic about these super high level executives when you interview them? And her answer was, they never stop learning. Okay. And that was a theme that, she had in the book that, and I know for myself, and, everybody knows I like different languages. One of the things I find so interesting about learning them is that you're constantly learning. You never stop learning. And I find that I'm happiest, I think, when I'm in that sort of learning mode, which she calls that atmosphere of growth. And I think that was very important. The other thing in terms of quotes that wore off was that if you want to be happy, you need to make other people happy. That will make you happy. And it's sort of like the old adage, it's better to give than receive.
Oh, yes.
That's something I think is again, these are all things like Price was saying, these are all things we sort of knew. I mean, 90% of the stuff that she gets into in terms of at least precepts and concepts and themes are themes we're familiar with. But I think what authors like her and what James Clear and Rhonda Symes, these people do is they put things into a perspective that clarifies and reconfirms these themes, and it makes them more actionable in terms of ourselves and our daily lives.
That's perfect. I agree with you 100%, which is what I think Mary Helen was trying to say, the same quote that you said earlier. And I think Joseph Sat, I think that's how you say your name, Joe Smith. Josephat. Welcome. Sorry. Did you read the book by any chance? Do you have any comments?
Unfortunately, I have not read this book. However, I'm glad tonight I'm here. I'm hearing everything about the book, so it's going to be on the list of books that I will be reading. So due to the time constraint, I don't get to read a lot of books lately. I used to read a lot of books, but I listen to books instead of reading them. So I'm going to put this in my list to listen to. I get a lot of insight from everybody's here. So it makes me want to go into the book and see what I can learn, what I can gain from it.
Perfect. Thank you, Joseph. All right. Yes. I want to ask you a question. You did mention that I went on her blog, of course I did, and did some research on her. You mentioned that you had all her books. Just curious, I mean, is her style kind of the same? Do you get the same kind of motivational, put into perspective, project manager sort of feeling from her other books?
It feels the same. When I was reading the other book, The Better Than Before, actually there's some things that she says in this book, I said to myself, but well, wait a minute, I feel that I was reading the same theme. It's about personal growth and development, which is something I'm hooked. I love to read about it. That's how I ended up reading her books. But they're kind of connected, the two of them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Aura.
One of the things that stood with me was that organizing part. That's something that had stayed with me for the last couple of years. And it transformed my life because, believe it or not, declutter, you may not be thinking about it, but if you declutter, your life will be transformed. You feel new, I feel refreshed. And as a matter of fact, I cannot start working if my desk is cluttered. And that's a habit that I learned from this book. The declutter and organizing and putting things. You don't wear something for a year, you give it to charity, put it in a bag and bring it to charity so somebody else can enjoy it. And those little things that it makes a major life-changing, it's a life-changing event once you read this book. Something as simple as the declutter. It worked for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Ara. So earlier, I think I mentioned that, if anyone felt she left anything out or from her happiness project, and I think she mentioned several times throughout the book, your happiness will be different than my happiness and vice versa for everybody. And so for me, I thought to myself, yeah, well, if I want to put this into perspective, I think bettering relationships, not just in terms of strengthening, but maybe relationships that have gone sour or bad or not on good terms, is something that for me, she left out. I think that's an important part of someone's perspective. So, and just to summarize,
I like her chapter on friendship and bonding. Just to continue with the idea you just mentioned, Geraldine, is that the book, the way I understand it, she laid down her secret for adulthood. That means she laid down her map.
Yes.
And now she needs to find her own territory. So that in my mind, I cannot be having the same type of happiness, but happiness is like beauty. This is a feeling. This is something. When you see it, you say, wow, I just feel it. You just feel it. And this is something that it will be very difficult to describe or to define. But when you have it, you just feel it. You are in the zone, as some football players might say. What I like with this book is that she decided at the beginning to have several topics that she will reflect her life upon. And I would like to go back to a book that you might know, Start With Why, with Simon Sinek. It just have the idea of finite mind and your infinite goals. Your growth, your mindset, your growth is infinite. There is no way that you can say, I am arrived. And I heard Steven say the same thing. And Linda, you said the same thing. That means my self-development, it is infinite. But my goals could be finite. That means I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I do think this is exactly what happens with this book. When I lay down the wording of the book, I put all her story, I put them away. And while I'm reading her story, I say, instead of be Gretchen, I say be Roosevelt. Instead of seeing it from her, and that's why you tell your story. You don't tell your story for people to remember every single thing about you. You tell your story for someone else to be inspired by you, for this person to find traits, ability, and gifts, and to help himself to face adversity. By example, when she said, are you prepared for adversity? Nobody knows for sure what will happen, but you know you need to have that mindset prior, if something happens. And that's how I understand the conversation. I understand what gives me energy, what sets me apart. I myself decide to grow in a certain way. What is that conversation? When I want to do something, exercising, yes, but the body wants to rest. But the mindset, let's go and let's make it happen. Now, what is that conversation? And I take notes. Instead of saying be Gretchen, I say be Roosevelt. And that will be the very same thing. If I'm having a conversation with you, I can go over those 12, I call them habits.
Yes.
What gives you energy? What do you do to have fun? How do you face adversity? And now I'm listening to your story. And that gives you time to reflect, to ponder. And this is in that way that this book might be helpful. Don't you think?
I 100% agree. And that's 100% true. The whole time, you're reading the book, you're kind of relating to it in your life now, or like you said, you ask yourself the same question she asked herself. Adversity, how do you face it? Have I faced it? Is this something new? Is this something that I have to do? And that's very true. And I like that you touched on the topic. I think you said, what do I like to do for fun? Because that was very important. I think in her book, she mentioned that does she actually do this for fun for herself or for others? So I 100% completely agree with you, Roosevelt. Thank you for that. And so before I kind of go over a summary, does anyone have any other maybe topics, something they'd like to say about the book?
I do.
Yes, Dave, go ahead.
Yes. While reading some of this, not the whole book. I was struck not only by how much is what you've already heard, but how many times other people are already doing this. And the part about be a storehouse of memories, I thought Facebook does that. Every once in a while, Facebook will pop up a picture of a time that you had and said, "Do you remember this?"
Oh, yeah.
I thought Facebook is doing that.
That's true. That's a good point. You're right. We kind of see it in everyday life. I think even then, when I look at it, I'm like, oh man, and I kind of feel a little bit nostalgic. And I say, oh, I remember that. It was a happy moment. And she talks about how photos are important because they capture the moment. So, but overall, I do just want to touch up on the book that for me, Mary Helen, thank you so much for the book. It was great. It had a lot of detail. And like Roosevelt said, for me, maybe I kind of should have stepped more into myself than just her. I think maybe I have a tendency to want to be like her and maybe perfect myself, or think that maybe, I don't know. I think she mentioned like, you are who you are, not who everyone else thinks. And you compare yourselves to others. And that's kind of what makes you want to be the same, but different. And so for me, it was a very great read and one of the first ones of the book club. And I do want to say that I really like the fact that she did this book without actually facing kind of something huge, which is what I think she asked herself in the beginning. She didn't have a sickness or a divorce or anything bad technically happening to her. And so just because something bad isn't happening to us doesn't mean that our experiences can't help others, and that we, by telling our story, as Roosevelt said, can't help others. And so for me, I just want to let everyone know that I hope that's something that you can tell everyone based on this book, just that you as an individual do have a story to tell, whether you think it's important or not important. So for me, that was the summary that I got from the book. So. Go ahead, Mary Helen.
Yeah, I want to ask Leslie a question.
Sure.
Leslie, how old are your kids?
Yeah, my kids are pretty spaced out. I have my oldest is 18 and my son is 10.
Oh, wow.
And, I was struck at, remembering back when I had kids that were young, and sometimes you're so struggling to do whatever you have to do with your own life that your kids are, I'm not saying they're neglected, but when she was trying to focus on, developing those wonderful, happy relationships with them, what do you do with your kids, Leslie?
Yeah, so I try to have activities specifically with my kids. Like I'm in Toastmasters. My kids both went through the Young Toastmasters Club, the Gavel. My son is still in Gavel. My daughter, she's too old now. She's 18. She has to join another adult club when she's ready. But I also coach soccer for probably about 3 or 4 years. So I try to have activities that I can spend and, like everyone said, take pictures and, do a lot of things with my kids because I think it's very important to have that quality time. When I reflect back on my own father, I didn't have a lot of those activities. Going to a game with my dad and, even playing board games with my dad. Well, actually a little bit, but not a lot, not as much as I would have liked. So I remember my dad was really into dominoes. So that's one thing I remember having some quality time with him and, going to friends. He was always busy. He was a cop and he was always out. He was always on the beat. Sometimes I hear about these incidents where there's clashes between civilians and the police, and you hear all this stuff about cops and you just hear the negative stuff. But then there's another side, a whole different side to cops. These guys going out there risking putting everything on the line every day for the citizenry, and we don't hear those stories. So when I have the opportunity, I like to spend time. My son, he loves soccer, so there's a ton of activities. There's never a lack of activities to spend time with my son. My daughter is a little older now. Recently, when the pandemic just started, I took the opportunity to, teach her to drive. She was, 17 at the time, so we used to go out on a regular basis. Now she thinks she knows everything, so she doesn't need my help. I call teenagers, they know everything.
She's 18.
She just needs the keys.
Exactly.
That's it. That's funny. That's funny.
Thank
Can
you.
I ask Leslie a question? Since you asked him a question, Mary Helen?
Yeah, sure.
So Leslie, when we were working on the creation of mashups, you, Geraldine, and I was a fanatical soccer player my whole life. And I noticed first that your son was very skilled at the age of 10. That's the first thing I noticed him with the ball, just in the 15 or 20 seconds. But that, moreover, that the video was called Something Maradona. And so my question to you is, how did your son react to the death of Maradona this past week?
Yeah, he was pretty upset. He was pretty upset. That is one of his signature skills. The Maradona, where you pick up the ball, you hit it with the back of your heel over your head,
yeah.
and it's pretty technical. I'm still trying to get it done, but he's perfected it. So yeah, he's pretty much beaten up by that. I mean, one thing about him is, interestingly, I talk about, when you go to a job, they usually look for someone that has 5 years of experience or above. And he, at 10 years old, he has like 5 or 6 years experience playing soccer. So it's he's a seasoned in the game.
Yeah, he's highly skilled. I watched him. He's very skilled. Yeah. He'll be another Alphonso Davies.
Perfect. And actually, Mary Helen, I want to add to your question. That's actually, I like that you asked that. That's very intuitive. Does anyone else have an experience kind of like Leslie's? It's true. I mean, as a parent, do you feel like you have to balance something, or even maybe not as a parent, maybe in another example, for instance, with your significant other, we went through a whole chapter with Jamie and her sister and her parents and everyone else. So does anyone have anything relate? Elena, haven't heard from you. You talked about your job a little bit. Oh, Price, you're putting your hand up. I see you.
No, I just have to leave right now, so I'll catch you guys in the next.
Thank you for coming, Price.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Price.
Bye-bye.
Or maybe anybody perhaps sings in the morning. Did anyone start singing in the morning? One of the funny parts about her book is she talked about the morning routine with her little daughter, where she began singing in the morning. And I don't know that she touched about whether she was a good singer or not, but singing in the morning helped her, and it changed her mood, and it changed the mood of her daughter as well. Sometimes, it was something that they picked up, they began rhyming. Does anybody else have this? I mean, I'm not a very good singer. I like to sing all the time. Maybe that's part of the 50% genetics that Mary Helen mentioned. I by default wake up kind of in a cheery mood and putting on something that makes me sing in the mornings. So does anyone else have like a relatable experience or something they could talk about? It doesn't have to be singing in the morning. Maybe there's something else that you do in the morning. Mina or Elena, go ahead, Mina.
I was just going to say, I was thinking recently that I haven't listened to much music during the pandemic. And I think it was 2 Mondays ago at our Peel Bilingual Club when Leslie put on some music, and I thought, wow, this feels so good to hear some music. And so I charged up the iPod. Now I have it ready where I should be doing exercise, and I'm getting a playlist ready to start my mornings, because I thought, you know what, if I hear music more, I think it'll lift my spirits, and I'll just attack the day in a more positive way right from the time I get up, rather than dragging myself and feeling like, okay, here we go, it's Monday. So I want to incorporate more music during this time.
Yes. That's true. And something that I also took is the whole energy thing. What she says is less energy you have, the less you are inclined you are to even do anything. So the same thing, the more energy I have, the more inclined I am to do anything, And so do you guys think that maybe happy people, one of the things she mentions is events, we tend to focus negative events kind of overpower happy events? Do you think happy people, if you have more happy events and you focus on that, people do remember, they can overpower it? Elena?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to answer this question because I belong to the other 50%. But I will try. Actually, speaking to continue on the topic that Mina brought up about music. Well, singing, I used to enjoy it, but then my husband, my ex-husband, he was saying, really, you know, maybe not. Maybe don't do it. So that kind of killed the motivation. And then about the music today, I had one of those days. Something went wrong. And I was thinking, okay, I'm reading this book. I need to do something that will increase my vibrations, that will raise the mood. Okay, it needs to be external. That's fine. Let's pick something. Let's pick music. And I went to YouTube because I typically listen to the music on YouTube. And I started clicking on my previous choices. And you know how social media works, right? You identify a few times what you like, and then it starts bringing in, kind of pulling in something similar and similar and similar. Not really bringing in variety, but pulling in similar stuff. And when I was going through all this music, I was thinking, wow, that's sad, that's sad. This is a blues, I like blues, but no, that's not helping in this situation at all. Okay, this is jazz, this is again sad. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't even have happy music, like completely in my social media, and that's why it's not bringing it in. So I think my happiest song is, I will not pronounce it correctly, but you know what I mean. No le pego a mi negra. And though the text is super sad, but the music makes me happy every time. So I guess I'll be selfish here. And if you have any music that makes you happy, please let me know. I would love to compile a completely new playlist. Thank you.
So Elena, I mean, talking in terms of what you said, one of the things that she said is, I guess music makes you happy, which means maybe music is contagious, right? I mean, sorry, happiness is contagious and music is to that. And then us being happy is contagious to others. So like Mary Helen said, I mean, I'm happy all the time. I didn't know it was contagious for other people. And so, sorry. And so for me, I wonder, what makes you happy that's contagious for you? In other words, do you guys find, I don't know, maybe someone doing something else besides singing, talking, or something that someone else makes you automatically happy, something that you see? It could be like playing a song or something. For me, I know whenever I see my nephews together or something, I could be in a bad mood, but their happiness being together is automatically contagious to make me happy. So, and that's one of the things she talks about. Go ahead, Lorraine.
One of the things that always changes my mind, my attitude, my feeling, and I don't know if other people get this also, kids playing or kids laughing. You know, when kids just laugh, it's just an innocent laugh, or just children in a playground just playing. If you just don't stop and look at it, it's like you have missed something. Just totally missed something. It's just a pure and just innocent moment. But not a moment that you want to miss. A moment that you just kind of want to capture and just move on with your day, and you walk a little lighter. Just those moments.
I agree with you very much. And something that I thought about too, that, you know, like little, I guess someone talked about goals versus, I can't remember what the other word was.
Resolution.
But, sorry, Stephen, say it?
Versus resolutions.
Resolutions, you know, doing Toastmasters, we've had to kind of go through Zoom, master new technology. And so you know, for me, that's something that's been kind of like on to-do list. Like Steven said, I had like a little workshop with him here and there. Leslie gave me kind of like a mini, I don't know, I guess you would say like mashup class on things to do. So doing Zoom is something that for me has brought me lots of happiness. Does anyone else have like maybe mastering a new technology, for example? Something that she's talked about.
Go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead.
I just think that anything that touches us emotionally in a positive way brings about happiness. For example, singing. I mean, I agree with the author that, you know, singing is actually one of the most enjoyable things that you can do, provided that you commit yourself emotionally to doing it.
Okay.
And then if you do that, it brings out the happiness.
Okay.
And I think that relates to other things as well. But if the experience is negative and the emotion is negative, then it's not going to bring about happiness. It's going to bring about sadness or whatever, you know, the emotion is.
It's true. I think one of the things she talked about too was laughing out loud, right? How she would like, she started laughing out loud on purpose. And so does anyone here like, I mean, I always laugh out loud. That's just how I am. Everyone kind of makes fun of me for it. I don't, you know, does anyone practice laughing out loud? When's the last time you laughed out loud and then you felt happiness in that moment? Do you remember, Mina? Maybe do you have an experience? I know that you have a lot of nephews, or I think godkids.
Yeah, I love those times when you just laugh uncontrollably. It doesn't happen so often, especially these days, but you know, when you go to a comedy show or sometimes when you would have family gatherings or whatever, and laughing so loud that no sound comes out of your voice, right? Like your mouth is open and you're laughing so hard you need to catch your breath and your abs hurt, you know, that's just amazing. And then you see somebody else laughing so hard and that makes you laugh. I love someone with a big laugh because that's automatically contagious. You'll just laugh because they're laughing, not because of anything that's funny. And it's just amazing. I love it.
Okay, that's perfect. That's actually probably what a lot of people tell me too. One of the things that she also mentioned, I think that she talked about with Jamie, was that she started to kind of watch herself, kind of like bite her tongue, I guess you could say. And she started to find better ways to communicate with him and everything. And so for me, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are married. I'm unfortunately not married. And so, did anyone else, I don't know, how did that make you feel as someone who's married? Mary Helen, do you have any take on that? Can you relate?
I have to tell you something. I think Toastmasters has been great. I really tried to not be a nag and try to use the Oreo cookie approach in every single, well, not every single time, but the one thing she did mention about communication is that she said she tend to argue the other side of everything. If what is, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm that way. I'm always trying to find the other side of it. And I guess some people would see me as being a little bit argumentative. Of course, I don't see myself that way. I just see myself as being interesting, right? But, talking about laughing, I realized it, or didn't realize it right away. I'm very fortunate to be married to a man who laughs very easily. In fact, one of Toastmasters, Christine Sneeringer, some of you may know her, but some of you don't. She learned how to do stand-up comic, and she was doing a video to promote herself. And we were in the audience, and she filmed him laughing away at her jokes. And then all of a sudden, with her noticing him being a laugher, I thought, oh my gosh, I am so happy to be around a laugher, someone I can make laugh, even with my stupid jokes. And so it makes me feel better when I can make someone else laugh, even though I'm not particularly funny. It doesn't matter. And Elena, I just want you to know I have such a collection of music. You have no idea. All types. I started to collect old CDs when, they got to be $1.50. And so I have all of them. I'm ready for any occasion, any theme. Let's go. In fact, I had a year, and I hate to go on about myself like this, but I will for another minute or so. But I had a year where I was somewhat depressed about a situation. So the only thing that made me feel good was listen to Christmas music. So I went out to the library, copied all the CDs. I got the CDs. I was listening to Christmas music all the way through May. but I felt better. And to this day, I still have a great collection of Christmas music. And some of the best people to do Christmas music are Jewish, believe it or not. Look at Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond and all those others. They do a great job.
Irving Berlin.
Yeah, yeah,
Mary Helen.
yeah.
Oh, before you even read the book, you were already doing one of the things she said is have a collection.
Right.
I do have collection.
Right.
I was just gonna ask, does anybody else have a collection? Something that makes them happy. I think she was collecting bluebirds, she called them. Little bluebirds, which is kind of funny. I think that's what they were called. Linda, do you have a collection of anything?
Not anymore. I was collecting horses for a while, but when I hit 20, that was too many. So I've been decollecting horses. I'm down to 4.
Oh, I'm assuming fake horses, not real horses.
Real horses.
Ooh,
wow. Really? What do you mean by collecting real horses, though? I mean,
well, okay. So my daughter and I would show a lot, and we actually did quite well with it. But it was much easier to accumulate horses than it was to disperse of them as you were trying to resell them to somebody else, and it became harder, especially with special horses, ones that were either very talented or were born at the farm or something along those lines. It became a lot harder to get rid of them, knowing that unfortunately the show industry that I was in, the discipline I was in, it got to be not so much about the horse and enjoying the horses as it was about the sport and I'm better than you. And the horses suffered from that. So it became very difficult for me to part with, especially some of the good ponies and horses that we had.
Oh, okay.
But no, I have 4 left, and they were all homeborn. So.
Wow, that's interesting.
Wow,
wow that's.
Do you train horses, Linda?
I did. I don't really much anymore. I've been traveling now that since I sold my farm, I've decided, because having a farm and having horses and traveling were not two compatible ideas. And I've decided that I wanted to do some traveling. So I don't really train anymore, but yes, I've done a lot of that aspect. It kind of fell into me when I just a talent that I had. I think the only explanation I could have is in a past life, I was a riding trainer or something like that. Because I don't know how I know what I knew at the time that I knew it.
I like that. Past life. Perfect. Okay. So just I already gave you guys my summary. So does anyone want to give me like their takeaway on this? Maybe what they got, Dave or Lorraine. You came a little later, but what's your takeaway from the book? What did you get? What are you going to put into perspective? Or maybe you're not, like Price said. I mean, you just.
No, it's a thinking book. It makes you think and examine your life. It's not that, well, I can speak for myself. It's not that I'm unhappy or I'm terribly happy. Are there 8 areas that I would like to improve on? Yeah, the same thing Mary Helen was talking about. Hi, honey, how are you?
Good.
I would never have said I was argumentative or combatant, anything like that. But one of the things that she said, she's a trained attorney. This was her thing. And I've always said that I like to hear 2 sides of the coin and play a little bit of devil's advocate so I can hear different points of view, and never really thinking about it from the point of view that maybe I could come off as being argumentative. So that was a little bit of a takeaway. My kids they're grown, they're out of the house, but the pattern interruption in kids who are about to throw a temper tantrum and distracting them. More so than being that exhausted, tired parent, and you just want to yell at them just so they could do what you wanted to do, what you want them to do, more so than help them understand what they're feeling right now and examine it, and then move on to greener pastures of not throwing temper tantrums, not totally annoying you as a parent. So those were really kind of some interesting takeaways. And just, as I said, it was a busy year for her. My gosh. I felt like I had just
Right?
I'm a sloucher.
Right. That's what I felt.
All right, do you have a takeaway you want to share with us?
To me, the biggest thing was the declutter. Something as simple as that. It has worked for me like magic. And to me, that is so powerful. That's how I start my day, with a clean environment. And that's what makes me happy. So that was my take from the book. Something simple as declutter.
Perfect.
Organize myself.
Thank you. And Dave, what was your takeaway? What did you get from this? Although
My takeaway is I need to finish these books.
Really. I gotcha.
That's a good one. I mean, I guess at the end, I think for all of us, the takeaway, or for everything maybe, is, I don't know, just that we always want to do better and better. And as Roosevelt said earlier, it's infinite. I don't know how it's said or pronounced correctly, but we're constantly ongoing. And I want to mention something. It's okay to ask for help. And so for me, that's something important, especially even here for tonight. You guys helped me keep the meeting going by reading the book, and we're able to have this conversation. And so does anybody else have a takeaway they want to mention?
Well, I just want to say that, having the 12 months, having written the Atomic Habits before that one, if you could put them together, they're going to be really helpful together.
Yeah, both.
Take whatever you want from each of the things she mentioned, put it together with the Atomic Habits. And the biggest, I guess, message is that it takes more than 30 days to accomplish or make a goal. That's what I read from her book. So whatever it is, just think about 30 days plus.
Thank you, Ilona. Anybody else want to add to that? Stephen?
I think the most important thing for me personally is that, you don't always have to be critical, even constructively critical. And sometimes it's more important just to be positive. And that also goes for individuals, whether they're interacting with somebody else or they're just considering different scenarios in their own mind. As she said, most of the time when people are left to their own devices, they're usually thinking negative thoughts. And I think, maybe we need to give people the benefit of the doubt a little more often when we're thinking about different scenarios, rather than trying to sort of, cover yourself or protect yourself against, things that could possibly happen.
Thank you. And Mina, do you have a takeaway from this? Something you want to share?
I think similar to Lorraine, the notion that it's not necessarily that we're unhappy, that we need to be happier, but that there's always room for improvement. So to look for those areas where we could be happier, where we could make things easier, where we could start our day on a more of a positive note, take those opportunities and grow. So I think that's what I'm going to take away.
Perfect. Same here. Leslie, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think happiness for me, I think you have to make a conscious effort to be happy, not just fall into that routine. I think there's a lot of good contribution today, and I think that was really an eye-opener for me as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. Mary Helen, do you want to add anything?
Well, just one thing before we go on to our next month's selection is that I think one of the biggest things I learned or realized is I was so pissed off about having to do the dishes or clean the house all the time. It just never seemed to end. It always went on and on and on and on until someone said, hey, what do you get from cleaning the house? And I get an orderly, wonderful, beautiful, clean kitchen. And so now when I do dishes, I focus on my clean kitchen rather than all that work I have to do over and over again. So yeah, that made a big difference. Changing my attitude.
Changing your attitude, correct. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a little bit of an instant gratification, but yes, I agree with you. Does anybody else have a takeaway they want to share? Roosevelt or Elena, go ahead.
I think that every year I think in terms of work, right? Okay, what else do I need to learn for my job? What else do I need to learn to get to the next level? What next certification I should get, right? And it's interesting to see that a goal or the next certification could be actually a certification in happiness, right? It can be,
Right.
yeah, it,
Totally.
I mean, why am I putting so much effort into moving up in work, right? Does it make me happy? Yeah, it does. It does for the moment. When I get that certification, that rush is like, oh, I accomplished so much. And then I call my best friend and she said, yeah, but you're not going to enjoy it for much longer. I'm sure you will be looking for the next goal now. And I'm like, you have to kill the buzz right now. You couldn't wait till tomorrow, but she's right. And so like, why instead of trying to go the roundabout to happiness, right? Through work, through certifications, why not focus on the direct route, right? And just say, okay, my goal, my objective is happiness. I'm not going around, I'm going direct. And really setting that up as a project and working towards that. I think that was a really eye-opening concept for me that I took away.
Thank you, Elena. Roosevelt, do you want to finish it off and give us your...
I'd love to. First of all, what an amazing job you are doing.
Thank you, Roosevelt.
I really like the way you conduct the conversation. And this is what a book club is about. I can stay home and read the book by myself, and then I put it back on the shelf. But when I have an opportunity to read with other fellows and having the opportunity to listen what you dislike and what you like, that add value to the book by itself. Gretchen took her time to make that experience by herself, and she decided to take notes and to share it with the world. And today, at least millions of people have read that book. Now I know how to conduct a conversation with myself. And Geraldine, if I have to have a conversation with you now, it might be over a cup of coffee, or it might be over a glass of wine in the evening. Now I know a couple of questions that I would like to know about you. What makes you having fun? How do you energize yourself? Those are questions that we want to listen from someone we are interacting with. And I do think my takeaway with this book is that it gives me a map. It gives me a model to follow. I don't care about her own story. That's her story. Now I can bring my story. And the more people that I have an opportunity to interact with, the more stories that I can have and the more I can learn. This is a great experience. I like this book club and I was very excited, and I really congratulate you because not only you have read the book, but also you have to put up with those fellow Toastmasters, and you did well. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much, Roosevelt. And thank you, everyone, for having me as your moderator today. And of course, Mary Helen, thank you so much for choosing me to facilitate the book club meeting. It was a great book and first time experience doing this, as well as doing any book club. Roosevelt, thank you for your help. And just like Gretchen said to all of us, never be afraid to ask for help. That got me here through Toastmasters, and it got me here through today. And it will continue to do so in life. So I think I'll turn it over to Mary Helen. Is that correct? I know you have some announcements to make and everything. Thank you, everyone. It was so great. I really enjoyed your insights and your conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Geraldine. Our next month's book club is going to be moderated, by none other than Mina Yoon. Mina, you have the book there, and do you want to tell us a little bit about it? Give us a little preview?
I don't know anything about it. I ordered it, and that's all I have. I have it in both English and Spanish.
Oh, wow. This is an ambitious girl.
I have a tall order for me.
So
That's
it's
just for fun.
yeah, Long Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende. Some of you have read her, some of you have not, but we deserve to have a novel, don't we? Yes, a novel for December, you know, a little bit of a break. But one of the reasons that I chose this book by Isabel Allende, other than the fact that I love her and I always try to read her books in English and Spanish, is the fact that she likes to dig into the history. And they say that history repeats itself. And once you read this book, you're going to see why. So yeah, I think you're going to really enjoy this book for next month's selection. And we're very lucky to have Mina be our moderator for next month. Now for January, we're going to not only have a great moderator, it's going to be Roosevelt this time. He's been letting people in through the door and making comments, but now he's going to get a real opportunity to lead the conversation in January. And let me see, I downloaded the picture. Do we see what that is now? Can we see it?
No, I think you have to reshare, Mary Helen. I can't.
Do I have to reshare? Wait a minute. Let me try again. Share the screen.
There we go. We can see it.
Okay. Do you got it? So now I'm intrigued by this, Roosevelt. Management techniques from the best damn ship in the Navy. It's your ship. Wow. Okay. So I haven't read this book. I'm going to look forward to reading it. And it's by... everyone take down their notes if you want to get ahead on January's selection. And again, that is going to be moderated by Roosevelt. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. And we're back to where we started. And I just want to say, happy to have you all here. I appreciate all your comments, and I appreciate everyone's opportunity to be able to share what's on your mind and what you got out of these books. I want to make a comment is that, you know, she talked about do the things that you really enjoy. When I was a little girl, I really loved to read. I would read everything. It wouldn't matter if it was a cereal box or not ever. And later on in life, it seemed that I was reading less and less and less and reading more online. And I just didn't have the same concentration to read books. So I appreciate the opportunity to share these books with you and to make myself read a book and to have someone to talk about it with. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mary Helen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good
Thank
night. Until
you.
next
Thank
month.
you.
Next
Good
month,
night.
same time, same place, last Saturday of the month, 7 p.m. We'll see you here. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.